Hello, and welcome to the Spec Shaman Podcast, the show that explores the world of building product manufacturers, architects, and engineers, sustainable design, and technology and trends. We engage in thought-provoking discussions with renowned experts, industry pioneers, and visionaries who are making a significant impact in the construction industry. Join us as we explore groundbreaking ideas, revolutionary concepts, and the latest advancements shaping the built environment. The Spec Shaman Podcast is hosted by Laura Elliott, the lead instructional designer at Ron Blank and Associates. Laura is a seasoned interviewer with a passion for uncovering the untold stories behind success. I hope you enjoyed this week's episode. Let's get started.
Welcome to the Blueprint of Outdoor Living podcast. I'm your host, Laura Elliott, and today I'm joined by Jeff Surovi, Architectural Sales Manager for Keylink, and Jason Foura, VP of Marketing Development for Wolf Home Products. Combined, these gentlemen have decades of experience in manufacturing and wholesale building materials distribution across various product lines. They bring a wealth of expertise to the table. Welcome to you both.
Thanks, Laura.
Thank you.
So I'm really excited to kick this series off with you two. Could you tell us a little bit about what inspired you to start the Blueprint of Outdoor Living podcast?
Well, Laura, Jason and I had an opportunity to work together for a number of years recently, and we saw the need for getting the word out to the design professional community about the opportunities in outdoor living. Oftentimes, we're brought in at the end of the project, and it seems to be oftentimes products overlooked or opportunities overlooked. And with that in mind, we decided that with our knowledge of the industry and our passion for the industry, that we would like to just kind of have a conversation about it over a number of podcasts.
In the past, my dad 30 years ago would have taken a deck and flipped the boards, and it was just a deck, right? He needed to treat the boards. He would turn them over and then repaint them. And that's very frugal, and I appreciate his frugality. But the reality of it is today, right, is people are just willing to spend way more money to utilize that space. We have less space available. And Jeff and I really just wanted to kind of elaborate on what we've seen in the last several years of seeing that growth and seeing it blossom into a much bigger category. It's not just a deck anymore.
Yeah, there's a lot of focus on going outdoors too. In the last decade, I think people have had a new awakening for how important it is to build great outdoor spaces.
Very true.
Absolutely.
Very true. I know one of the topics that Jason and I wanted to address was how does outdoor living impact everyone? And we spoke this morning briefly about simple as grounding every morning, and being outdoors and being able to ground, and the benefits for your health, vitamin D, and just having fresh air. I think I feel strongly that COVID had a lot to do with this. This new attention to outdoor living. We were cooped up for 2 years approximately, maybe depending on the region of the country, maybe more. And again, it's what we all went through as a society, as a international as well. I mean, it just wasn't the United States, but everybody went through this together. And I think there's a takeaway from that, and it's the refocusing on healthy living, outdoor exposure, and the like.
So can you share some of the main goals you hope to achieve with this podcast?
Yeah, the main one for me, reach a broader audience and help the design professionals understand that there's a lot more options that they may have been aware of. We see, like Jeff had mentioned, the end of these projects, they end up getting bumped off the job, or they end up getting value engineered out because no one's taking, I think, a bigger angle at the potential of those projects. We kind of joke, starter home builders, will board off the back door with a dummy door, and really leaving a big opportunity missed where, again, 20 years ago, it was just a deck. Somebody put a deck on later and they didn't want to bother with it. It was low margin, low volume. And, they're missing a big opportunity because it is really an extension of someone's home. So my main goal would just be, again, to broaden people's horizons, maybe use some of what we've seen in the industry across many different states, and really just learn from other guests that we potentially have on. There's a lot of difference between West Coast, East Coast, the Southeast, the Southwest. And so really just learning from it, and hopefully we can just use this as a way for other folks to learn from what we've learned too.
To Jay's point, we do see a lot of regionality in products we supply to what markets. Jay mentioned earlier, traditionally speaking, black railing has been the predominant color of railing throughout most regions in the country, but you go down south, the lighter colors, white in particular, has been very popular down there because it doesn't hold the heat like black and some of the other darker colors would. But there's many things that one has to consider about with the regionality of that, and we're finding that with the builders that we interact with, the architects and design professionals that we interact with as well. So it's just sharing knowledge, sharing best practices. Hopefully we all learned something and have a takeaway from it. And I'm excited about we've had some great collaboration to date about some of the guests that we're going to invite across different aspects of outdoor living. It's not just all about railing and decking. It's going to be encompassing a lot of different topics. And that's exciting to us.
Yeah, I can't express how excited I am about this series and just the topics alone. I think for each episode that we have coming up, there's a lot of takeaways here, and there's a lot of different things to consider when we're talking about the outdoor living space. So, how does outdoor living impact occupants? Because at the heart of it, that's what it's built for, is for people to go out and enjoy the outdoors.
I think it impacts by just, making an extension of your home. Again, it's really the viewpoint or maybe this the change in how it was being viewed as just a deck as now, really an addition of your home, right? I mean, people are putting TVs in them. They're putting flat roofs, pitch roofs, these type of pergolas that have shade, capacity. They have waterproofing systems that are louvered, lights, and just giving them an addition to their house, really. I mean, really a usable space. Jeff and I were kind of joking. I've been to Norway a few times, and it's amazing because they have a colder climate and they utilize that outdoor space way better than what I think we have been conditioned to. They have heaters outside. I was telling Jeff, right, 50-degree weather, you'd have a sheep wool's blanket for your lap, and you'd be sitting on sheep's wool because it's warm. Right. So utilizing more heaters, just utilizing that space and understanding that, we're going to feel better about our day. We're going to sleep better if we get sunlight, if we get outside, if we just utilize that space. I think it's going to make us to be, to have happier lifestyles in general and just enjoy our homes better.
So how does the demand for outdoor living spaces, how has it changed since COVID? What are the most significant things that we're seeing?
We have seen as an industry, I'll use the term skyrocket, the interest in outdoor living, materials, products, design, focus on that. It's just taken off like a rocket, and it's exciting because we're in that industry. However, and that kind of ties back to the fact that people are realizing today that having exposure to the outdoors is important. We spoke earlier today about screen time and how many people today just spend their entire day in front of a phone screen or whatever it is, and they're even when they're walking. I just it's amazing to me. I like to, if I go out to take that walk, I want to go out and just enjoy. I might be listening to something, but I'm not sitting there, looking at a website or something to that effect. We need to be outside, and the COVID has really taught us that need, or reinforced that need to be outdoors and to enjoy that space. And we see it to continue. It's not slowing down in any stretch.
No, COVID definitely, there wasn't anything really good that came out of it, of course, but if there was anything somewhat positive, it was just the reorganization or the reinvigoration of, being more outside, utilizing your kitchen more. And really the outside is kind of more of an extension of your kitchen. Kitchen's now a hangout place. And to Jeff's point, we just need to be outside more. Our kids need to be away from screens. They need to be outside. They need to be enjoying the fresh air, get sunlight. I was telling Jeff, even if you had to watch your favorite football team on a Sunday, if you're sitting outside, throw a yoga mat down, do some push-ups, do some exercise, if nothing else, sit on the couch while and breathe some fresh air while you're outside. You're going to feel better at the end of the day.
Agreed.
When I reflect on that on a personal level, in my childhood, I spent a lot of time outside. And then I think when I became a young adult, I was so indoors. And I had a similar experience. I went to Scotland in the early 2000s, and they had the same heaters. And it was, it was pretty cold outside, but I mean, everybody was outside outside and enjoying themselves. And I started to see those big heaters come through on decks of patios at restaurants and things like that about 5 years after that trip. And I was like, this is remarkable. Like, we should have been doing this for quite some time. Fire pits also kind of hit a really great stride about 15 years ago where they became really, really popular. So I agree, being outside is so important, especially for our kids and how much time they spend on computers and ourselves. I mean, almost everything we do is digital.
Yeah. Incorporating that fire, like you mentioned, is so huge, right? I mean, it's in our DNA. There's something about fire that, just mesmerizes most people. And it's something that we all should go back to, right? I guarantee your kids will be happier if they sat on a fire and you made some marshmallows or just sat and watched the fire. There's something about it. It's fairly, reasonable price point to have a solo fire pit or, one of those, those smokeless pits that you can buy now and just set it on your deck. Right. So yeah, great points.
Brings back the primeval nature of the human too, sitting around fire and enjoying that space with your community, whether it's your family or extended family and the like. So it's really good.
There's a lot tied to it. It's a simple thing. You think you could overlook it pretty easily, but there's a lot to benefit from outdoor spaces. So with this new focus of let's go outside, let's really make an integral, move towards designing for outside. What are some of the challenges that owner teams and clients are facing when they go out to build an outdoor space?
I consult with design professionals, setting expectations for not only materials or outcomes, but also budgeting purposes. And really, it's key. Those are the challenges that we all face when working to design something or build something, is just making sure that we set proper expectations and proper budgeting to get the desired outcome.
Yeah. And to Jeff's point on that, the main reason, right, Jeff, is that we don't want to see you go through the design process, which is very, very important, and then have it value engineered at the end because nobody planned for it, or, the design gets overlooked because it's the end of the project, right? Yeah. It is a very valuable space, and put the priority behind it, but then understand how those products are also very striated. I mean, product where hits 5 different price points or more, there's price points to hit. So kind of working with your manufacturers to understand where those price points are at so you can better design with a budget in mind. There's nothing worse than seeing that design go to fruition at the end, and then they kill it and it gets value engineered out.
Right. And to that value engineering, oftentimes they're looking to, I'll use the term cut corners. And cutting corners really is not something that's allowed in this space because there's very specific written code. The ICC prescribes certain codes for both residential and non-residential building, and railing has to meet or exceed certain requirements. And there's no way to cheat that. Oftentimes we're forced up against an uncomfortable position that we have to then work with the builder and the owner and the architect and working through some of these details, because there was budget overruns. I can't tell you there's a project I've ever worked on in all my years that came in on budget. I mean, there's always scope creep or something to that effect that causes the budget to go slightly awry, and that just happens. So, but locking things down and making sure that we have that conversation up front will yield the best possible project outcome.
And railing has, I think, a little more specifics behind that code side because of it, being a guardrail and height issues and restrictions, and you have inward force, downward force. For decking, it's more of a span, and most of them will fit the span. So from my side, Jeff, it's really more of probably just more aesthetics, and just assuming you're going to pick something because it looks nice and pretty. It may not be either on the high, it could be on the low side or the high side. It's just, there's a lot inside that decking world that's somewhat cluttered. Between boards that have the bottom chiseled out where it's more hollow to cap composite, you have PVC, broad range there. And even inside those categories, there's a broad range. So really just consulting with your manufacturer as a consulting partner and lean on them to help you with those. I think it's so important because we love the design space, and it's so important to get these projects built and looking correct, and looking like they were meant to be in that space. But at the same time, there's nothing worse than seeing it subbed out at the end and it all goes awry because that planning wasn't done on the front end.
So how can design professionals better focus on that outdoor living space in their design?
Well, I think by just utilizing manufacturers in general, right? be open to it. Have people come in on a regular. I mean, I have a local firm in town that I meet with probably at least every quarter, and it may be for continuing ed or just to catch up with just one item, but they use it as a PK session, right? A product knowledge session where, they're just getting up to speed. Build those relationships, reach out to the people that you gravitate towards that are solving problems for you, and then maintain that relationship, right? It's important.
Right.
It's important because, again, you can't know it all, right? You have to lean on people.
I agree. There's way too many things that architects and design professionals in general, and in my involvement with the design professionals, I work with architects, I work with landscape architects. I'm even seeing the opportunity to work with interior designers, because today we're seeing the transition from exterior to interior, interior to exterior with our railing styles, our infills in particular. Cable is a really popular design infill today for railing. So again, working with us, asking questions. We're here to give advice and guidance. It's the best sale I've made is sometimes the sale I don't make. I'm not really interested in if it's not the right fit. I'm going to tell you it's not the right fit. I just was doing something earlier today with one of our customers, and I said, just don't feel right about that. And this is maybe the way you should take a look at this option instead of the way you were going. It's really just giving them the guidance and earning the respect of that design professional.
You're speaking my language. The trusted advisor university,
Yes.
I think, is the best route to go. Your integrity and your relationships matter so much more than that quick sale. And I couldn't agree more with that take.
Most of my career, I've been working directly with architects, but I've told them, so at the end of the day, I want to put my head down at night and sleep comfortably because I knew I told you the right thing.
Yeah, gray hair and experience are helpful, right, Jeff? But it's nothing without integrity.
Every time.
I can say that because I do have some gray hair, so that is fair.
I have no idea what you speak of. So.
I don't either. I don't know what you're talking about, Jason. So, what are some really cool design ideas that we can use to maximize outdoor spaces?
It's so varied. I mean, I think it's a great question. I think if we can give a teaser out for maybe future podcasts, our goal would be to bring in, professionals where we can lean on them for some specifics and then get them excited about how they solve those problems. Jeff and I both wanted really to probably have a whole entire podcast on just solving unique problems. And I think that's my favorite part, right? I enjoy problem solving, and that part of my job I really, really enjoy, where, I gave Jeff an example. One of those that I worked on years ago they had problems with setbacks, right? They couldn't attach a deck to a house because it inhibited setback, regulations. And so they were too close to the property line. So they said, okay, fine, we'll think outside the box. They pushed the deck all the way to the back of the lot. They parked it right on the setback lines, and they made a nice little path right back to the doorway that had steps going back into their house. They followed the law, right? They stay within code regulations, but I love hearing innovative, ways to solve problems like that. And so that would be our goal for a future podcast. If we can put a teaser out there, it would be to solve some problems and just get examples from other design professionals and other contractors that have dealt with this from, for their entire career.
Again, there's so many different things that we've talked about, and we want to introduce to the design professional community about outdoor living. Lighting has become a very popular topic. For example, it could be as simple as just a little, we call them accessory lighting, that may go on a riser to provide a lighted path of egress. That's the technical term. But there's many other options for lighting today, from brightness to intensity to color, all of the different aspects. Working with the architects right now on a project where we are providing lighting for a ADA ramp, a path of egress, and we have to measure out the appropriate foot candles of lighting so that we meet the ADA requirement for this path of egress. So again, there's so much more than just putting a light on a post or under rail lighting as it would be. There's some really unique things. Jay and I spoke about kitchens, and Jay can speak far more detail about kitchens and appliances that go outside, and some of the cabinetry, other accents like fire and water. We see so many different things. I've been recently involved in a very large project that from the railing aspect of it, but they tied in virtually everything. They had dive pool, they had fire accents, they had water falls. It was just an amazing project. How do you bring the indoors to out? I spent most of my career in the window and door fenestration industry, large opening multi-slide or bifolding doors, allowing that transition from interior to exterior. Screening systems are very popular today. The seasonality of the space. Jay mentioned earlier about heating, and how do you, especially in the Northeast and maybe the north central parts of the United States, even the Northwest, how do we get the most mileage out of that outdoor space and providing warmth and heat, and how do we tie that all together? There's a lot of unique aspects of that, and I have a lot of excitement about the opportunities to bring some of these ideas and maybe quantify the ideas for the design professional community in the coming months. I know we talked about building this out over 6 to 8 months with different episodes, and more to come.
Yeah, I can't tell you how excited I am just listening to you talk about it. Some of the building materials that we're going to talk about in these episodes are stellar. I don't think there's anything better than a great evening outdoors. I mean, and especially with an environment that's curated and thoughtful and intentional, there's a lot here that we're going to uncover, and it's going to be great. How do we balance aesthetic and functionality? I love the ADA example. Is there anything else that we can consider?
Well, I think again, it's back to kind of back to budgeting and price point. It's aesthetics and functionality are wonderful, but if you can't budget it properly, then everything else is compromised. So again, I don't want to go full circle back on that, but it is just important to understand how they do play together, and you can find some very nice products that are in that price point side. So just be open minded. Again, find someone who you can lean on to give you some real good consultative advice, and there are price points. I mean, for example, decking can go anywhere from that like high $2-3 range a foot. Typically decking is priced in foot, all the way to right now over $9, and so even in that lower $3 range, you can find some very aesthetically pleasing products that are functional. They just have different means, I guess, to the ends. Cap Composite has a composite matrix inside, and that's primarily made up of some type of wood flour or wood particle. And then they have a great resilient cap that goes over top. And conversely would be PVC. PVC has no organics inside of them. And the two, are very distinctly different. PVC does much better near water. And then Cap Composite would have a lower price range to get into those lower budget, potential projects. So just important to know, people think decking and they probably think of maybe 2 or 3 names nationwide, but there's a much larger range even inside of any of those categories that people need to be aware of.
Agreed. Where I go with the aesthetic, railing manufacturers, I give presentations regularly. In fact, I just did a national webinar yesterday for design professionals, and I speak about aesthetics and the manufacturers today in our category, and I speak of all the ones in the aluminum railing category. We all have a variety of different profiles and infills, and that kind of speaks to the aesthetic. Functionality for me, ease of installation, and I speak a little bit further down channel with the contractor, or sometimes we even have a do-it-yourselfer that wants to put product, install product. But most importantly for me, when it comes to functionality, is the topic of safety and making certain that the railing that is being selected for you meets or exceeds those codes that I spoke about earlier. That's very critical. There's some manufacturers that will lead with new product and then bring the testing in later. There are other manufacturers that test first and then put product out on the market. So it's very important to make certain that you go into the selection of the product with your eyes open and willing to understand what's out there and ask proper questions. I think that's a very critical part of that design and construction aspect of the project, and helping you to set the appropriate budgets. Jay brought a lot of information regarding decking. I've been with Jay and some of his colleagues, and it's overwhelming to me on how much there's out there with regards to decking and the like, and it's very good to have all that knowledge.
Well, and to add one point, Jeff, to also to your point on on code restrictions and just code regulations, making sure that you're up to speed on your local municipality, right? There's folks that'll follow the 2018 code, they'll follow the 2021 code. Obviously, we're in 2024, but there's usually always a lag there. And then there's some municipalities who are very, more forward thinking, and they're ahead of the game, and they want to adopt the closest, and most recent, regulation. And if your posts, especially on railing, right? Because if your posts connections and your overall code ratings don't match, a lot has changed. The 2024 code has required a lot more stringent, requirements than what they've had in the past. So just being aware of those is very helpful. But to your point, Jeff, right, he's working with a company who's testing that stuff ahead of time and staying ahead of the curve instead of being behind the curve.
Right. And again, that's so critical. We run into a couple of counties throughout the United States that have really ramped up their review on outdoor living. We're working with them very closely to make sure that we're speaking the same language. In fact, I have meetings next week to discuss some aspects of this conversation that we're having now. Again, it's important. We all have the same concerns. It's just how that knowledge is shared from authorities having jurisdiction, the code officials, and the manufacturers, so that we understand that we're all working on the same goal: is create a safe space, whether it's indoors or outdoors.
And that's our hope here today too, is to get that information out to as many people as possible. With this series and the upcoming episodes, I think that we're going to be able to create a great knowledge SharePoint for everyone to, have some great takeaways. Who are some of the key players that are involved in the outdoor living space? Is there somebody that normally takes charge or takes the lead, or is it a collaborative design experience?
Getting downstream, getting in front of designers, whether it be the design professionals at the AIA Institute, or it's just simply a deck builder who obviously needs help and needs an understanding, whether it be maybe a deck visualizer. That's a whole nother discussion, maybe for another podcast we had discussed. But the key players really, I think, is just, again, folks that are helping to get to those key influencers, which would be the architectural community and the contractor base. That contractor, landscape, architect, but installer, contractor, landscape architect.
Training, educating, being out on job sites, working with contractors and other tradesmen to make certain that we raise the level of knowledge of how product goes together, how it works, what to do, what not to do, tips and tricks, as it would be for installation. Time is money. Product today it's very important to have a product that's easy to install, especially with some of the more complicated infills. I mentioned cable before. Some of the manufacturers out there today have cable. Not all are created equal. And we make certain that we are working to answer the needs of those of the people that are installing them. Again, it could be a contractor that has 20 years of experience, or it could be a homeowner for the first time. We want to make certain that the product is easily understood and how to install it, and more importantly, have the resources available if in fact they have a question or a need in the field that we can answer.
Speaking of answering questions, would you like to introduce our next expert guest?
Laura, I'd like to introduce to you Mike Beaudry, the founder and executive director of the North American Deck and Rail Association, also known as NADRA. He is an industry thought leader and organizer, making certain that all parties involved in building and design of outdoor living environments have a place to communicate to advance safety, innovation, and excellence in the outdoor living space.
Hi, Mike. How are you?
I'm real good, Laura. How are you?
I'm great, and I'm so excited to have you here. Could you tell us a little bit about your role with the North American Deck and Rail Association and the organization's mission?
Sure, I'd be glad to. So the North American Deck and Railing Association started back in 2004. It kind of came together where we needed a voice. This was when CCA lumber was being discontinued and ACQ lumber was coming in, and the manufacturers of fasteners were pointing at the chemical companies, and the chemical were pointing at the lumber companies, and we were just trying to, as deck builders, to be like, look, just what do you want us to use and how do we do it? And so we kind of had a problem across the country that pulled us together. You usually have to have something that kind of brings you together, and that's what it was. And we were at Deck Expo. It was the second one ever back in 2004, and 19 guys put $100 in a hat, and I was holding the hat, so I ended up being like the guy, right? So after about 3 or 4 years, we put everything together. We had it set up as a nonprofit 501c6, And basically, I was ready to move on and go back to building decks. And they said, Mike, if you don't keep doing this, this isn't going to fly. So I begged my wife to support me, and she did. So here we are 21 years later. And I would tell you that we're an overnight success because it literally was a very long struggle until about COVID, right? And COVID
Yeah.
was kind of the perfect storm. It made us embrace technology. We really learned about how to do Zoom and talk to everyone. And from then on, it really took off. And so NADRA has become pretty much the voice of the deck and railing industry, and we're expanding into all of outdoors. So we have the pool and spa people we're working with, and really our mission is to raise the bar, right? When you look at other industries like electricians and plumbers, they're all certified and well respected. When you're a deck builder, it's kind of like you got a truck and a toolbox. Well, you must be a deck builder. Well, it's a lot more than that, right? I mean, these are people's lives. There's 20, 30 feet up in the air sometimes. And how
Mhm.
is it being built? And is it being built to code? So our goal was to help raise the bar. And now with over 1,500 members across the country, we're growing. We represent manufacturers, distributors, dealers, the contractors, inspectors, architects, engineers. It's crazy how many people actually, how many hands touch what goes on outside on the deck. And so we've been really blessed to just have such a wonderful group of people. And our mission is to not only bring it all together, but make decks safer. And that's a big thing for us. And we'll talk about that as we progress. But deck safety is a very big part of our mission.
So, how does NADRA support the outdoor living industry?
Well, basically, by bringing everyone together, we started to come up with, okay, what are the codes in this state? What are the codes in that state?
Mhm.
What are you guys doing to solve this problem or that problem? And then, really, through creating a peer group, we brought, in many ways, the industry together. So I
Mhm.
can tell you 15 years ago, most deck builders didn't know what a rep was, and a rep had no idea how to find a deck builder. And now,
Mhm.
oh my goodness, they know each other on a first name basis. They help each other all across the country. We work with those manufacturers regularly, coming up with testing products, having real field testing, not just being done in a factory or being done in a lab. It's what did the guys come back with? And like, well, it sounded good, but man, we can't do it in the field.
Mhm.
So much of that has happened because, like other industries, we're not creating anything new here, right? We're just looking at other industries and saying, what are good programs there and how can we bring them into the outdoor living industry? So I'd love to tell you that I'm super smart and come up with all these great ideas. No, I'm just basically looking at what's going on and trying to bring that together into the outdoor living industry. So those are some of the ways we do it.
Yeah, the space has definitely grown. And I can't tell you you were the first person when Jeff and Jason got together. They were like, we have to get him on because you're making such a big impact with this organization and connecting people together. And so it's really inspirational to see what you're doing. What are some of the biggest challenges that's facing the outdoor living industry today?
It's almost like we don't have them. It's like how can we
Mm.
keep up with demand, right? When COVID hit and people realized they could stay home and were forced to stay home, they wanted to have a better space at home. So the whole idea of whether it was a pool or a fence or landscaping or a golf green or a deck, how can we bring in a hot tub and a spa? It's amazing how it just took off. Now, that's not to say outdoor living wasn't growing all along these last 20 years, but it certainly accelerated it. And now it's almost like the sky's the limit. We run an annual competition. It's actually coming up in the first week of January.
Oh,
Everyone
cool.
comes into Florida. We meet at Clearwater. We have this incredible awards for all kinds of different levels of decks and pricing of decks. And it every year I look at these. I mean, we're talking thousands of different projects, and I go, how can it ever get better than that? And then the next year they come up with new ideas. And so I just think that the new technologies and the new materials that are coming into the industry are allowing the builders to be more creative than ever. So I think we're just going to see more and more growth in this area, and it's just exciting to watch.
Have you seen the building codes and regulations shift also with this like new focus on the outdoor living space?
When we started, literally the deck code section of the ICC, and this is the IBC, so whether it's commercial or it's residential, um, it was like 2 pages. And we were like, there's a lot more to decks than this. And
Yeah.
now if you look at the decking section, I can tell you we started in 2008 was our first one. And then it was 12, 15, 18, 21, now 24. We're literally working on 27 codes as we speak. It takes that long to go through quite
Oh,
frankly, the
wow.
bureaucracy of all this stuff. But it's amazing. Now you look at it and it's got an entire section. And it's really about just making sure we're doing things safer. And it's not that we didn't try to build great decks before. We just didn't simply have, the fasteners and the connectors and the understanding and the materials that we have now. So we don't want overregulation. Believe me, code is supposed to be minimum, right? It's supposed to
Mm-hmm.
be based on affordability and how can I build it and still be safe, right? And so we cover code, and NADRA literally is the voice now at these hearings. We collaborate with all kinds of organizations ahead of time, see what they're planning to bring into code, talk to them ahead of time so we don't get there and get blindsided by somebody who wants to do something really radical, right? And then you have to fight it. Who wants to do that? So by kind of being the organization that's allowing collaboration, it has really built the brand of NADRA into kind of a voice. And believe me, it's not NADRA, it's the members and the people that have gotten involved. These are all
Mm-hmm.
PhD guys and wonderful builders that are they're given a place where they can communicate with one another. And that's why we're now so effective in the code arena.
Well, that's a remarkable advocacy story. I don't know that I come across that very often, so I really appreciate it. Um, what are
Well,
those?
besides code, just keep this in mind. Like code's great, but then there's the best construction practices,
Yeah.
right? Like, okay, code is really important and it is a minimum, but there's also what else can you do? Could you go above code? And yeah, you can. So when you
Mm-hmm.
start looking at some of the things we're doing now, some of these areas are so new, whether it's composite infused with glass with a steel framing, or whether it's aluminum framing. There's so many new products coming that we didn't really use before. And then even wood is enhancing. They're getting better all the time. So it's just really, really fun to watch. And then, so best construction practices are also a big part of what we do. We educate on both levels from a code standpoint and then also a best construction standpoint.
What are some of your favorite trends that you're seeing right now?
It's no longer your grandfather's deck. When we look back, you put a 10 by 15 on the back of the deck, and it would be a big wooden rail and there'd be like pickets and it would look like a jail cell, right? And
Mm-hmm.
now it's so creative and you're literally creating rooms within the outdoor living. People always talk about, we want the indoors outdoors. Well, they
Mm-hmm.
do. And so there's more pergolas. And in many parts of the country, if you don't have some kind of roofing system, it's just too damn hot, right?
Right.
So many, and then these louver sections, my goodness, you can hit a button and all of a sudden it opens up and you have sunlight, or you can close and it's a dry
Mm-hmm.
below system. And then of course fire pits and hot tubs and outdoor kitchens. It's just so fun to watch
Mm-hmm.
that it's really creating so much more enjoyment for the home. My
Mm-hmm.
personal thing is I got 8 grandkids, right? And when I watch them on their stupid devices, it makes me crazy, right?
Yeah.
And so when they're with the family and they're around the fire pit and they're cooking s'mores and dad's on the grill, right? It's like I just love the fact that we're getting back to family and we're putting down electronics and we're giving them opportunities to do things that we need to have. We need to be
Yeah.
outside.
Yeah. I can't agree with you more on that point. I think that's such a fundamental thing. And some of my favorite memories are on decks and in outdoor living spaces. I mean, they're such a draw and they're so communal, and that's such a great aspect of what they have. I really love the glass. Anytime they integrate glass, you can see the sunset over an ocean. I mean, that's just, oh, that was so
And
smart.
not only glass, like think about the openings now. A French door is
Mhm.
a French door, a sliding door. But now it's like, hey, we're going to create this door that's literally 20 feet long, that's going to fold into itself. And it's a beautiful day. So now the outside is inside, right?
Yeah,
Oh, and then listen, we want to look at the mountain or the ocean or just, the backyard. I don't want to have necessarily a railing system. Can I have glass? Not only
right,
can you have glass, you touch the glass and all of a sudden it goes opaque. So let's say it's by the hot tub,
right.
right? And I have teenage girls. I don't want everybody looking in bikinis. So you press this thing and all of a sudden it's private.
It's private.
Or you open it up and it's glass. Or how about this? You can literally put designs, etching into the glass, and then it's lit from below and it shows whatever that is. So whether
Oh, that's
commercially
so
you're at a
cool.
restaurant, you're doing logos, or whether it's at home when you're doing scenery,
Mm,
it is just, and who knows where this is going to go. It just keeps getting better and better.
mhm.
Curved glass, right? Like actually now they're
Right,
curving the decks.
right.
Imagine curved glass section. So it's just every time I think there's no way this can get better, somebody comes up with something creative and it's just like, wow, who would have thought of that?
Yeah, it is definitely a wow factor aspect of design. So how do you educate on all these new trends? How do you help the consumers and the contractors to know about outdoor living?
So we've created kind of a couple things. One, the NADRA blog, right? You can go into the NADRA blog, a consumer, anybody, and you can look up whatever you're, let's say you're looking up what are the local codes or what are new in code. You put that word in there. We've been doing this now 20 years. It's probably the largest searchable database out there. And I'd love to say, wow, AI, dude, this was before AI. Like this is happening because we were just putting everything in there, right?
Hmm.
And then you can click on manufacturers. You're looking for decking, and all of a sudden there'll be Trex and AZEK and Fibron and Wolf and whomever, right? And
Hmm.
you can get right to it rather than having to surf the whole net to try to find each one, which is fine. There's links once you get there. If you want to go directly to that, you can, right? But then you'll also see articles about trends and just pretty much anything to do with outdoor now is beginning to grow within that Nadra block, right? And then of course we have manufacturers portals so they can put on whatever they want. You'll often
Oh, that's
hear
cool.
You'll often hear in construction, it'll refer to manufacturer's installation
Hmm.
specifications, right?
Hmm.
Our goal is to get all of them up within this website. That's going to take time, right? But at least it has a link to the website so you can try to find it. Even on
Hmm.
Nadra, it's like, I can't even tell you how many, I would say tens of thousands of pages now, right? It's like, how can you find anything? So
Right.
as we get more and more sophisticated, you're going to be able to go to one place, find the information you're looking for, and that's our goal, not only to help the industry professionals, but to help the consumers because consumers are more educated now than ever.
Hmm.
And we want to continue that. We want to give them a place to find that information.
I love that resource catalog idea. That's fabulous. Anytime that you can streamline research and make people land in the right places, because the search sometimes can be so you go down so many wrong turns. So how
Yeah,
do
and we
you
try to make that simple. You can just go to the website and you can find most of the stuff you're looking for.
That's awesome. So how do you see the future of outdoor living spaces?
So I got a personal goal. I look at what goes on and outside, and we're very lucky, right? Because in most parts of the country, topography kind of demands a deck, right?
Hmm.
Certain parts of the country it's flat, you can walk right out. But in many parts of the country, you have topography changes. So you're going to come out on your deck first. So that means we get the customer first. So why aren't we taking on the responsibility of making it easy for the customer and bringing all of outdoors to them? They don't want to have to go after you to a pool company and then a landscape company and then a fence company and a lighting company. So
Hmm.
we're really in a really great position as far as manufacturers and dealers and contractors and designers, architects to be that all encompassing up front.
Hmm.
So a personal goal that our board of directors has and NADRA and the membership is all right, how do we help bring pool and spa, fencing, lighting, landscape, and then oh my gosh, they're building greens in the backyard now, right? You can have your
Hmm.
own golf green. It's crazy what's going. We want to try to bring all of those other associations together so that you're not having to go everywhere. They'll
Hmm.
still do their thing. God knows I can't do fencing, right? Let's fencing do fencing, but let's create something where we're all working together because once the consumer has someone they trust and they've built a relationship, they don't want to do it over and over and over again.
Yeah.
So that industry professional can build those relationships, become the facilitator. They can all do their thing, right? But it's just going to make the experience that much more enjoyable for the consumer.
Well, I love that too. The connection and collaboration point, I think, is really key to what you're doing and making sure that there's cohesion amongst planning and ideas and access too. No, nobody's in a silo. And that's, I think, one of the greatest things that's happening right now. I see it in so many places where we're breaking down these silos and having everybody come together. And I think it's impactful. So, do you have any closing thoughts for us today?
Yeah, we can't close. I have like so much more to cover. I have a thesis here that I started.
I
If
would.
I had to close, I would close with this. The innovation that is happening so incredibly fast now is not something you want to miss. You don't want to, unfortunately, materials are expensive. It's not just like throwing it up like you did before, right? It's an investment, and you want to get it right the first time. You don't want to go, oh, geez, I got to change that, right?
Mhm.
So I would just say that I believe the consumers need to do their research. They need to make sure that they see ideas. One quick thing, the years and years of our deck competition is on the website. So you can see thousands of projects and be like, oh, I really like that railing, but I like that deck over there. Oh, look at these steps. And you kind of put together your perfect idea. So when you meet with a designer or your builder, you have a much better idea of what you want. And that's something I really encourage consumers to do, to get an idea what they want. So when they do meet with a builder, they have some good ideas of what they're looking for.
Yeah, something to come to the table with.
Yeah. And then lastly, I'm excited. Listen, this is nothing special. I'm really more of a facilitator than anything else. I just love bringing people together and then watching what happens. And I'm
Mhm.
excited for these next years when we start bringing the other associations together. And then, then I'm looking forward to spending a bunch of time with my grandkids and enjoying my deck.
That's a great plan altogether. And I would love to talk to you again in a couple of years or in the next season and see what new growth and change you've seen. Because I think there's a lot that you're doing here and it's really impactful. And I'm excited for the future of the outdoor living space, really.
We're just so blessed to work with so many amazing companies and people. So yeah, we love it. We consider NADRA kind of an extended family. And when we
Yeah,
get together, it really is like that. I could tell you a million things with programs we've created. Nothing is more beneficial to the members than the other members. That's where
right.
they learn. That peer to peer is like, Mike, you're great, but shut up. I want to talk to so and so. I mean, it's wonderful to see that because that's really where the magic happens.
Yeah, that collaboration is you can't replace it with anything else. I think that we went away from talking to each other there for a minute, and I feel like there's a flourishing of that again, where everyone's like, oh, okay, we want to hang out and learn from each other now, and that's really
And you
cool
know
to
what
see.
else? It's not where most people would think that. I mean, we have areas in New Jersey and Atlanta where we have, let's just say, 50 builders in the same market area, right? And you think, oh, they'll be so competitive and they're going to not like this guy. It's actually the opposite.
That's cool.
Who could you talk to that would be more in tune to your own lifestyle and the other families than someone
Right.
doing the same thing? And what's happened is they've gotten together and said, you know what, I can't handle that job. That's more at your level. Let me send this customer to you.
Oh,
Or hey, you know what? That's just a little bit. I don't want to do the fencing as well, but how about you do that? And so
that's
this
cool.
and no one ever saw that coming. And I can tell
No.
you that people, they're being invited to weddings, they're being invited to bar
Aw.
mitzvahs. Like they've really become really true friends, and that's the biggest gas I get out of everything.
Yeah, what a community.
All right.
That's very cool.
Well,
Well,
thank you so much for having me. I wish you tons of success with this show. It's so
thanks.
great that people like you guys are out there doing this.
Yeah.
And anytime we can help, please call on us. Like I said, we don't. I just know a lot of great people, so I can certainly help point you in the right direction.
Well,
So,
that's great. I'm
because
into
they're really
that.
the smart ones.
Understood. I think you had a great vision, though, and I'm glad you held the hat. All
All right, Laura. Thanks
right.
so much for
Thank
your
you.
time. Okay, now.
What a memorable guest. I really enjoyed talking to Mike. Jeff and Jason, let's get right back into the conversation.
The only thing that you might be saving is the illusion of cost, lowering your cost. But when you don't have knowledge of product and the means and methods of how to get product to the job site, what did you really save? And
Mhm.
again, Jay had an excellent example that he shared earlier today on our conversation about a client in the Midwest finding a product and now trying to get it from the East Coast to the Midwest for this project and trying to balance it all out on time and in budget. And it just doesn't work that way all the time. If it does, you're lucky. It's been my
Right.
experience. Yeah.
Right. No, I mean, buying stuff in bulk and truck is great, right? We love to ship you a truckload of material direct from the factory, but The reality of it is, if you need, which is always going to happen in our business, right? You're going to need those onesie twosies. And how do you get a fill-in product, whether it be 3 deck boards or 8 deck boards or 2 sections of railing, into an area where you have no trucking, you have no real clean distribution. So it is an old system. It is very efficient at what it does. And there's a reason why it's still around. It's extremely efficient to break down multi-skewed products into smaller skewed, obviously, orders and get them to you in a reasonable fashion. Most good distributors are going to distribute in an area 2 or 3 times a week. And having that consistency, reliability, right? It's cash on the ground. Contractors need to finish jobs. Architects need to finish jobs that they're working on to get paid, and they don't get paid unless they're finished. So everybody loves the lure of buying in bulk and getting those discounts. But I can tell you, if you're to Jeff, you're exactly right, Jeff. It is an illusion, because if you can buy in bulk and you can magically pick the color you're going to need and never have to have any infill later on, fair. But that's a complete rarity. It's not worth the cash on the ground. It's not worth tying up your cash for. So it is an older system. The 2-step but it does work very, very efficiently. It works really well, mainly because, you can't just snap your fingers and get a product somewhere overnight if you're waiting on a truck to get there that you don't have the means for trucking. Mm-hmm. So it's logistics, really good logistics meets great sales team, to Jeff's point, force multiplier, add it all up, and you can get product very effectively to jobs and let dealers, finish projects where they now don't also have to sit on all of that inventory, because there's 8 colors and 14 SKUs. And when you start multiplying those SKUs together, they add up real fast. You'd have to have massive amounts of sales and a sales team on your own end to make it efficient. And it doesn't work. It really is an illusion. So great question.
So then you all are sitting on that piece of information, but how do we get that to the consumers? How can consumers be better educated about the possibilities that encompass outdoor living?
Yep. Great question. Great question. Whenever I train contractors or talk to architects, I always ask them, ask whoever you're buying from, if it's a dealer, right? Lumber dealer, a one-stepper, ask them when their distribution comes to you, so you know when your days get there, and know what your distributor stocks. If you're gonna do a special order, know that it's gonna probably be a 3 to 5 week lead time, right? If you order something that distribution has on the ground, it's delivered to you twice a week in most markets. In some cases, 3. So just knowing what your distributor locally has as a design professional or a contractor or an installer is extremely important for finishing jobs in a timely manner.
So then how should the owners or clients consider planning when they're looking at an outdoor living project?
Well, I think just determining what colors are stocked and what ones aren't, right? What is a stock product versus non-stock, right, Jeff?
Asking questions up front, making informed decisions about their wants and needs for their outdoor space. I mean, it's sad that, we get into projects where they have a certain idea in mind, a color in mind, or what have you, and all of a sudden they're up against they got to get their project done, and a color that's not stocked in the distribution channel has to be ordered. We refer to as made to order product categories, and there's a 3 or 4 week lead time to that. By the time it gets to market, and that's up against the clock. They can't get their C of O, and all of a sudden, they're sacrificing their goal of having this particular look or style because they didn't properly plan. And proper planning is always the keystone of any project.
And I'll parlay off that too, Jeff, because it's so important to set the right expectation, right? We see it all the time. And this is happening. This is something that I would say is a massive trend that I've seen over the last 5+ years, 10 years, as these products have gone from just a deck, just a 16 by 12 or a 16 by 20 and a basic handrail, to now a truly an addition of your house that can utilize that outdoor space. Those expectations have gone through the roof. Rightly so. You're spending, you went from 25 grand to as an average to now 50 or 80. Mm-hmm. Of course, your expectations are going to go there, but you have to temper that. It's not a rocket ship. It's it's still, it's still susceptible to the freeze and thaw cycles in some markets. It's still susceptible to weather, special order delays. There's timing there. So to Jeff's point, just tempering expectations is really, really important. I think I would only add to that, when we talk to contractors, I love training contractors, and it comes back to me asking them, who here is a salesperson? And I think a lot of contractors, they don't always view themselves as a salesperson. And sometimes sales gets a bad rap or maybe a negative stigma, but it's just persuading and influencing somebody as a consultant. So I always try to tell them, temper those expectations. If you oversell it, you're probably going to also have more problems on your hands. You're not being upfront as a consultant to talk about the pros and the cons. There's no perfect product. Feel confident knowing that there's pros and cons, and that just takes somebody that's, again, in the professional arena to help walk you through what the right product is for your situation.
Correct.
Yeah, because durability is huge, right? And those products that are going into outdoor living spaces, they have a high call for durability, and that's a lot riding on that. And it's not something I think that we can continue to compromise on, just saying, well, let's not make an outdoor living space. Because I think it's pretty clear, would you say that integrating health and wellness into an outdoor living design is like key, right? There's a real need for our mental health, our physical well-being to be able to be outside and to create these spaces for occupants where they can be healthy. Wouldn't you say?
Agreed. I oftentimes talk about in my presentations with design professionals about the life cycle assessment of products, and meaning the longevity, the maintenance, and the repair of said product. And again, that's for the entire outdoor space. I mean, what is that life cycle assessment? We're talking about a substantial investment. It's back to Jay earlier. He said, 30 years ago, it wouldn't be out of the question for his father to take the deck boards out and flip them and repaint them and reuse them again. I get that, and we're not doing that anymore today. There's a lot of choices out there, far more than 30 years ago. Making informed, educated decisions, sharing that knowledge with the homeowner, or end user client. It could be a commercial installation. Commercial is a whole different. Non-residential commercial is a whole different aspect. We're looking at just a use factor, tenfold. We oftentimes speak with commercial clients that are designing, or architects that are designing outdoor living spaces for commercial entities, hospitality type things, and we look at the use factor of that material, and it's very important to make right decisions up front. And sometimes you end up spending a little bit more. Coastal applications, we see a tremendous amount of opportunity along the East Coast today, and down into the Gulf as we expand in the Southeast markets. Manufacturers require within a mile of the coastal waters, or brackish waters for that matter, an upgraded finish. And having those conversations with the end user, because you're setting expectations. They love to use product right along, cable product, for example, stainless steel cable. I said, stainless steel cable still is going to rust. And they look at me, I said, well, it just stains less than other materials. I mean, you still have maintenance, and it's describing what maintenance is involved with that to make sure that their expectations are met, not just the initial 30 days or 60 days, but 2 years from now, 10 years from now, that the product has met their expectations. And we spend a lot of time making sure that they understand the need for maintenance, especially with the proper lubricating or oiling of the cables so that they don't rust and or corrode and the like. So it's very important to have that knowledge going in there. And setting expectations is key.
No, I can't agree more. I'm a beach kid. I grew up in a beach town, and the difference between somebody that took care of their materials and ones that didn't. There's so much outdoor living in those kinds of places, and people can get hurt if you don't maintain those products well. That is for sure. What
And
are
the liability factor is
Oh
huge.
gosh, it's it can be really, especially for commercial spaces where the outdoor living space is the draw that gets
Correct.
people to stay for the weekend or come for the dinner or whatever.
Right.
It's a huge deal. So what are some emerging products that we're seeing right now in the outdoor living space?
We covered a broad range of that, right? I mean, like Jeff mentioned, and we'll tease the rest of the audience with, giving them hopefully other manufacturers and categories that will go a little more specific on down the road. But fire, water, heating elements. I had a company who put in, this is kind of cool. They had on a deck, they had a second story deck, and outside of the walking space, outside their sliding glass door, they have this system now where you can get it's impact glass, and you build it as almost a see-through pass-through to get daylight down through there, again, to add sun below your deck. Really cool wow factor, and you're walking on top of air, it looks like, when it's clean. But it really, the sky's the limit. And I think what's happening is, and I hope I'm right with this trend, nobody has a crystal ball, but I hope I'm right. I'm hoping that people are just trading some of their disposable income in for some of their material possessions to spend more money in a space that is giving them happiness, right? There's only so much happiness your car is going to give you. But if we're outside and we're actually enjoying our home in an outside environment, I just think it's a better use of your money. That's just my opinion. But I hope my trend is right. And you're seeing that, you're seeing it blossom. And to Jeff and I's point, I would have never thought, Jeff, maybe you can prove me wrong, right? 30 years ago, if you would have said someone's going to spend 80 to 100 grand on an outdoor living project, I said, you're crazy.
Agreed.
But I think it's for the good, right? I think that you only have so much money to go around. But if you're going to utilize that, we know in America we have a happiness problem. I don't think, and if that can help alleviate some of that and people are happier, that's a great thing.
With the cost of housing, the cost of money, mortgages, for example, people are now investing instead of trying to move up to the next home. We're seeing, because it might be out of their price range, we're seeing people now are making that investment into the additions to their home. It could be outdoor living. It could be an addition to their house to expand for an in-law suite or what have you. We're seeing more of that investment going back into the home. Outdoor living has certainly been, this sector has been certainly benefited by that thought process. We're seeing incremental growth in the different infills, be it rod, be it cable, be it glass, be it what have you, the next trend. Screening, lighting, cabinetry, kitchens, outdoor cooking. We mentioned accents like some fire and water, the large opening doors. Commercially speaking, we see a lot of these big swinging doors that now open out onto like a patio, outdoor patio that now provides so much more space.
I know of a couple of personal examples. I used to, like I mentioned, I lived in a beach town and we would get hit by hurricanes pretty frequently. And it would always cause tidal and coastal flooding in the areas that we lived. And I knew someone that took their deck as an opportunity to create protection from flooding in their home. So they put like sandbags and water infiltration materials in and around their deck and built berms as well. And they actually successfully mitigated flooding in the next hurricane because of some of those outdoor living choices that they made. So I think that there's like just such a comprehensive ability for these spaces to not only offer us health and wellness, but in some cases protection against pretty routine flooding issues. So I think it's a really great space, but how do the specifications play a role in these outdoor projects? Do you feel like there's enough education on the materials that should be chosen? Could we do a better job?
The space, a lot of architects, I feel like maybe they kind of still think that the category is an afterthought a little bit. I'm broad brushing this, but I think it's because of how the past was viewed, right? I think that it was kind of one of those things where, again, it was like, if the budgeting, has enough in the end, we'll build a deck. And it's like, no, use part of your budget to actually build that. You may
start
end
with
up,
the deck.
right. I mean, you could, it wouldn't hurt.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I mean, we would like that selfishly, but of course, for happiness factor and just being outside, we know that trend's there. So you maybe feel the same way, Jeff, but I feel like it's getting better, but definitely still, I think, needs some room for improvement. It's just, it kind of, I see some architects interested in it and some design professionals, and I see others that kind of just view it as kind of like, it's someone else will take it. Like the deck builder will just add that on later. But it shouldn't be viewed that way. It's really a different space now. It's a space all into its own.
And is that part of the vision of this podcast? Just to kind of incorporate this part of design a little bit more into the main event?
Yes,
Yeah, I think,
yes. new light to this topic, the outdoor living topic. Jay and I live this every day. We're seeing the opportunities for product and projects. It's something to be considered.
So how do you decide on the guest list?
Well, we discussed earlier, and I think that, I think it'll organically happen. I mean, we have an idea of just being in the industry for so long, and fire, like we mentioned, we know people in the paver space, fire, outdoor grills, outdoor kitchen lines, lighting. All those I think are extremely design. We have several contacts that we can work through with some visualization that I think with AI could be really a game changer as far as how people can view that outdoor space before they actually even spend the money to do it. So I think organically it'll unfold on its own, but we have enough, I think, folks that are already lined up at the door, shall we say, to kind of to be involved with adding value to this, and really just getting the word out and just giving examples of how they've solved problems, neat spaces that they've been able to incorporate, solve challenges with maybe a code. Yeah, we're excited that we definitely don't have any shortage of guests, I think, that would be interested to jump on. As you may have noticed, Jeff and I usually aren't lack of words. Our intention would be, this is where we peak as far as what we have to say. And we're not in any shortage of words, but we really just want to bring in our knowledge of the industry and then bring in those experts to let them help to make this a more dynamic presentation and more of a, passing along information than just us, sitting here, waxing.
No, and I think that's one of the things that I really, when you guys first, when we collaborated on this idea, it feels like a vendor night, right? Like it's we're touching so many different materials all at the same time. I do a lot of course writing and I talk a lot about building products, and it's really cool when you get to utilize all of those different products and really have a comprehensive conversation about how we design this well, how do we consider the occupants, how do we consider our budget and our distribution, and I think everybody benefits. There's not a loser in this conversation. Everybody just kind of wins across the board. So, and I think that probably in your experiences over the last few decades, there's got to be a favorite project that you have. Is there something that sticks out to you that's just really memorable that you would love to share?
I would say yes, but we're going to save that for other episodes. I would like
teaser.
I would like our
Keeping our powder dry.
Can't let it all out here, Laura. Come on now.
Listen.
I would love for them, honestly, to be the ones that talk about it, because you can see the passion. It's great for us. We love it. I love, honestly, to see how they succeed. And it really is a partnership. We really value our end users, the design professionals, and the contractors. And I think that that'll be a really good way for them to highlight some of what they have brought to the table.
Agreed. No, I'm excited. I know that we have some ideas around bringing in project types and how they've solved, whether it was a site issue or how they created a certain feature, or how did they deal with a difficult client, and unrealistic expectations. My background, working in fenestration, some of the projects I worked on in my past, there was sometimes a 36 to 42 month build on some of these custom homes that I worked on. And, I one a close colleague of mine who was a construction manager for some of these high-end residential projects. I would ask him, I said, everybody's happy day one, when you sign the contract and you put the shovel in the ground for the first day. What happens 36 months from now? You still have that same joy? I mean, you really, it's about setting expectations and partnering with your clients. And I just want to make sure that, we share that, and the knowledge that we have, the excitement we have about the industry, hopefully provide value to those who participate in listening to our podcast.
Well, I'm really excited to start this with you guys. And I can't think of two better gentlemen to be a part of this. And I'm just really thrilled about the whole project. And I look forward to seeing you guys on the next episode.
Thanks, Laura.
Thank you, Laura.
Appreciate you.
See you soon.
Thank you for listening to the Spec Shaman podcast. If you enjoyed today's episode, please subscribe to our show and leave us a review. The Spec Shaman podcast is produced by Laura Elliott and Brad Blank. A huge thank you to our guests who made this show possible. Building product manufacturers who want to increase their specification opportunities, please visit specshaman.com or ronblank.com. Thanks all for this episode, folks. See you next time.